Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi Kornberg.
So my question for us to think about this morning is, how do we define a community? How do we define a community? What are different ways? Because there are different communities, different types of communities. What are some defining factors? What are some ways that we can describe a community? Coming together. Good. Support. A group of people with something in common. Excellent. Anybody else? Say it again. Belonging. Rabbi? Shared purpose. Okay. Shared history. Excellent. There are lots of different ways, please. A common goal. I like that. There are lots of different ways that we can describe community, and the reality is that within our tradition, there are actually different Hebrew words that describe community, and to some degree their purposes are different, right? So anybody know a Hebrew word that is a word for community? Kihila. That's one of the three. Anybody else? A kvutsa. Kvutsa is a group. Doesn't necessarily mean community, but it could be. It's not what I'm looking at, though. Andrew just came up. What role did he play when he was leading the tefillah? What's that called in Hebrew? A shaliach tzibur. Tzibur is another name for community, right? He is the agent of the community, the head of the community at that moment, right? Yeah, it could be. It's not a biblical word, though, so you're not going to find it in the Torah. The last word is actually edah, an edah, right? So edah, tzibur, and kihila are all different ways of understanding community. And there's a great analysis that Rabbi Sachs actually makes of these different words. And he talks about where the word comes from and how it actually defines a community. So he argues, or he writes, that the word edah, an edah, comes from the word ed. And ed is a witness, right? A witness. And you can hear that word being used in a lot of different ways, whether it's like a teudah, which is a certificate, something that witnesses something that you've accomplished, right? He says that the people who constitute an edah have a strong sense of collective identity because they are witnessing something together, right? They have a shared faith. And we see that actually in the first commandment that's given to the people. That's where we sort of hear the word edah first. It was back in Exodus 12, right? Tell the whole community, Adat Yisrael, right? The community of Israel, that this 10th day of this month, you shall take a lamb for his family, and we have the law of Passover. So we see an edah coming together for that common purpose, that common focus. It can be good as well as bad, right? For this, it was Passover. We also see the term edah used in Numbers when talking about the spies, right? How long will this wicked community grumble against me? La edah hara'ah, right? That that sense of negativity can be there as well. Tzibur, he says, is actually, and it's the word we use most often, a shaliach tzibur, it's actually just a group of people who happen to be in the same place, right? The way he describes it is, imagine a group of people at the Kotel, at the Western Wall. And everybody looks around and says, there's 10 of us here, great, we can daven together, we can pray together. They don't necessarily come from the same place. They're not even necessarily there for the same reasons. But they happen to be in the same place at the same moment, and so they combine for a particular action, right? The reality is that we too, we are a tzibur. We are also, I would argue, a kihila, which we'll get to in a second. But we're a tzibur. When Andrew comes up and leads us in services, and he is shaliach tzibur, he doesn't care where we're coming from. He doesn't care what may have happened to us this morning. He doesn't really care why we're here. He just wants to make sure there are 10 of us so he can daven. Right? That's a tzibur. That's a tzibur. A kihila, Rabbi Sachs argues, is actually sort of a combination in some ways. He says it's like a tzibur in that its members can be different from one another, but it's also like an edah because very often it's purpose-driven. And when you come together and it's usually translated as a congregation, right? When you come together as a kihila, it has a recognition of the fact that we're not all alike, we're not all coming with this, we don't all think the same way, and yet somehow we manage to come together for that common purpose. And that is the verb that is being used as we begin this week's Torah portion. Vayakhel. Moses brought together a kihila. And think about this, right? This is right after the golden calf. We read that last week. And so he's trying to get a bunch of very disparate people, a bunch of very, probably everybody in a very different emotional state. Some people may still have a grudge against him for being gone so long. Some people may be embarrassed for what it is that they did. Some people may not even understand what's going on and why this is even a big deal. Who knows where everybody is coming from after this? And yet he gathers them together to do what? What is it that we're doing in Parashat Vayakhel today? We're building the tabernacle, right? So let's turn to chapter 35. Right? Vayakhel Moshe. Moses brings everybody together. They use the word here, convoked. Not really sure what that means. Sort of like invoked, I don't know. Convoked, convened, sort of a mix between the two. But Moses made a kihila. He gathered together the whole people of Israel. And then he said to them, these are the things that you're supposed to do. But what are these things that maybe are different than in the past? Anybody know? Take a look. Read through those first couple of verses. We're on page 552, the beginning of chapter 35. Actually, I'll focus you even more, and let's look at verse 20 on 554. Verses 20 through 20, you can go up to 29. How do these verses express the concept of kihila? Mike. Yes. 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 So it was a community that was coming together, and they all gave out of the goodness of their heart. Okay? We're going to read today in the maftir portion. We're going to read, as Rabbi Ern said, about shkalim, right? That's also a gift, a donation that is made. What's the gift in shkalim? Anybody know? We haven't read it yet, but we'll read it later. Machatzit shekel, it's a half shekel. Every single person gave machatzit shekel. And it says specifically that those who are wealthy shouldn't give more, and those who are poor shouldn't give less. Every single person gives the exact same thing. What's happening in the verses you just read here, though? Yes, everybody gives based on their gifts, right? That's what it actually says in verse 20. And everyone who excelled in ability and everyone whose spirit moved him came. They all gave based on who they were. And if you think about it, these are sort of the two different types of communities that we're talking about. The everyone giving a half shekel. We need to give a half shekel because that's what it is. That's what we need to do. That's what we need in order for the community to be sustained. But that loses something. It loses the alchemy that a good community creates. And that alchemy is based on the individuals that are in it. And it shifts and it morphs as people come and go, as people discover new skills and new passions. The way that a community works and the way that a community flows is going to change. And I find it so powerful that the Torah recognizes both. Today we are bringing together both of those types of communities. And the Torah is saying to us, both are necessary. Yes, we need dues, right? Everyone sort of pays the same dues. Okay, that's shkalim. But to really make it a kihila, we need people that have gone out of their way to learn all the different parts of the service so they can come up and they can do it. And we need people who are going to be willing to participate in all sorts of different ways with this service as a gabbai, right? As a greeter, everyone brings their gifts. And it makes it so much more powerful and so much more special. Michal.
I don't want to dismiss the idea of everybody giving the same half shekel, because I think that's also significant in a certain way, meaning that they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And, it doesn't matter if you're, rich or poor, it's kind of equality in the congregation. And, so that's kind of nice too.
Yes, I agree with you. The power of the half shekel, the power of saying everybody has a piece of this and everybody's piece is the same. That's important. That's important. But the negative of that is you lose potential by not allowing people to bring their gifts. And actually, as we go through this week's Parsha, not only do they say everyone should give what they can, but they actually single out one person who was so incredible that they said, hey, this person is the person who's going to help us build this tabernacle. That person's name is Bitzalel, right? You see it in verse 30 and following, right? He had this artistic vision to be able to make the Kihila and to be able to make the Mishkan into something more than just average and standard, into something that's beautiful. Now, his vision may be different than somebody else's vision. That's okay. Right? They actually named the premier art school in Jerusalem is called Bitzalel, right? And it's been around since, certainly before 67. I don't think it was there prior to the state of Israel, but it may have been. I mean, it was close. It's been around for a very, very long time. And this idea of calling the art school Bitzalel, everybody has their different passion, and I can like this art and not like that art. I'm more partial to Impressionists. I don't really understand modern art all the time. Okay, great. That's me. But by allowing somebody who has skills, who has passion, to step forward and say, I'll take the lead on this, it elevated the tabernacle, right? It elevated, and you couldn't do that if you said, sorry, everybody just gives a half shekel. That's all we get. That's all anybody can do, right? This allows for that beauty, that growth, that individuality. It frankly is what makes every community different. There are people that love davening here, and they say, well, I went to this person's bar mitzvah somewhere else in a different state, in a different whatever. It was very strange. It was uncomfortable for me because this is what they love and this is what they know, and vice versa. There are people who daven elsewhere and come here and say, whoa, this is not for me. Because every community has that sense of individuality. Marge.
There's like a community message, and then there's a very individual message that you belong in two ways, and that if you have a lot, you still belong at a level where everybody is.
Yeah.
If you don't have a lot, you still belong where everybody is.
Right. Look, I will argue, and I think you're right, both of these are important. And it's so amazing that we're reading both of them today, right? Both the half shekel to make sure that everyone who wants to be a part of the community feels a part of the community. And it doesn't matter how much you have and how little you have. Everybody has an equal stake, so to speak, in the community. And most communities are set up that way, right? That if it's not an equal stake, they allow for individual people to say, this is what I can pay, this is what I can't pay, right? But everybody has the same stake. When Rabbi Ern and I look, we don't know what anybody pays here. All we know is you're a member. If you're a member, you're a member. And with that, if you're paying $18 or if you're paying $1 million, you're a member, right? That's that equality aspect of it. It kind of lets everybody be the same. Yet at the same time, we wouldn't have the things that we have. We wouldn't have the individuality of this community, this beautiful sanctuary, the new building that we have, if it weren't for some people who said, I can give more. And I see this vision of what it can be. Both are important. Both are important.
I also just want to say the flip side of the half shekel, when we're talking about being able to bring what we have, we can learn from the half shekel that there isn't anything too small.
Right.
None of us are too small. We all have something.
Right.
Right? So whether that's just making sure that there's tissues in the bathroom or whatever, it's serving the bigger community. And maybe somebody has $1 million and they can do something amazing, and that's great. But man, if somebody's in the restroom and they don't have a tissue, that's a big loss.
Right.
So it's not to dismiss the things that each individual person notices, sees that they can contribute and help. I just think that's an important.
Absolutely. That there's nothing that's too small, and everybody who can find something, some way to engage in the community and make it better, whether it's making sure there's are there tissues in the bathroom? I don't know. Okay. Yeah, let me know. Whether it's tissues in the bathroom or whatever, it matters. It matters to the experience. I love that. I love that.
Isn't it kind of giving kind of a mandate, like a tax versus giving from your heart? I mean, there's a mandated amount for functionality.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been translated into, tax versus donation, right? That sort of mentality of a tax is something that everybody is supposed to give. Whether they do or not is a different issue. I leave that up to the IRS. But everyone is supposed to give, and it's supposed to be fair and to everyone. If it's not the same, it's supposed to be fair to everyone. A donation is It's not about fairness. It's about what you can do. It's about what you can do. And I'll also say that the numbers are not absolute when it comes to a donation, right? According to this, it's what your heart can give. And therefore, $1 million donation may be the same as giving a year's worth of your time on the decorating committee to help figure out what to do with that $1 million, to make it work. That may be, those are equal, because both have given from the heart and have given with passion. Any last minute things? We're going to go through and understand. Normally, Vayakhel, by the way, is read as a double portion, right? It's Vayakhel Pekude. This year, it's not. Why? It's a leap year, right? It's a leap year. We're just finishing. We're going to be benching Chodesh a little bit later. We're just finishing the first Adar. We're going to move into the second Adar, which brings us to Purim and all of those holidays. And so, we need to be thinking about that piece of it. That this is part of a story. Usually, it's connected to Pekude. So, if you want to go and get a vision and a head start on what we're going to read next week, now you can read along as well.